2017, a couple, Sarah and James, popped a bottle of champagne on the front porch of their brand new four-bedroom home. They'd done everything right. Good jobs, good credit scores. A real estate agent who told them, "This is the smartest investment you'll ever make." The house cost $385,000. Their combined income? About $120,000 a year. On paper, it looked perfect. But here's what nobody told them. Within 3 years, Sarah and James had drained their emergency fund. They'd stopped contributing to their 401ks. They turned down a career opportunity in another city because they couldn't sell the house fast enough. And by 2022, even though their home had technically gone up in value, they were worth less than the day they bought it. Not because they were irresponsible, not because they were bad with money, but because they walked into a trap that is so well disguised, so deeply woven into American culture, that most people don't even realize it is a trap. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how it works. My name is Zach, and if you've ever felt that pressure, that voice in your head, or maybe it's your parents' voice or society's voice, saying you need to buy a house, renting is throwing money away, real estate is how you build wealth, I need you to stay with me for the next 12 minutes, because what you're about to learn could literally be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you over your lifetime. I'm not exaggerating. I'll show you the math. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to unpack the real cost of homeownership, the cost nobody puts on the brochure. We're going to follow two people, same income, same age, who make one different financial decision and end up in wildly different places by age 55. And I'm going to give you a practical framework, a set of rules, so you can figure out whether buying a home is actually building your wealth or quietly destroying it. If that sounds like something you need to hear, do me a favor. Tap that subscribe button. I make videos like this every week, breaking down the money systems that most people never question. And honestly, the people who do question them are the ones who end up free. All right, let's get into it. So here's the thing about the housing trap. It doesn't look like a trap. It looks like the American dream. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Let me explain what I mean. When most people think about buying a house, they think about one number, the purchase price. Maybe $350,000, maybe $500,000, and they compare that to rent. They say, well, I'm paying $2,000 a month in rent. That's $24,000 a year. That's money I'll never see again. If I buy a house, at least I'm building equity. And on the surface, that logic seems airtight. But here's what's hiding underneath. When you buy a $400,000 home with a 30-year mortgage, you don't pay $400,000. You pay, and this is real, somewhere between $700,000 and $850,000 by the time you account for interest. That's at current rates. You pay property taxes every single year. That's roughly 1% to 2% of your home's value, every year forever. You don't stop paying property taxes when the mortgage is paid off. You pay homeowners insurance. You pay maintenance, and the standard estimate is 1% to 3% of the home's value per year. That's a new roof, a broken furnace in February, a foundation crack, termites. And here's the one nobody talks about. You pay opportunity cost. Every dollar that goes into your house is a dollar that is not going into investments that could be compounding, and that's where the real damage happens. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Meet Kevin and Lisa. Both are 30 years old. Both live in the same mid-sized American city. Both earn $95,000 a year. Both are responsible with money. Same starting net worth, same financial literacy, same everything. Except one decision. Kevin buys a house, a nice one, $375,000, puts down 10%, gets a 30-year fixed mortgage at 7%. His real estate agent shakes his hand. His parents are proud. His coworkers say, "Smart move, man. You're building equity." Lisa? Lisa decides to rent. She finds a solid apartment for $1,600 a month. Not glamorous, but comfortable. And every single dollar she would have spent on the extra costs of homeownership, the gap between her rent and what Kevin pays in total housing costs, she invests. She puts it into a diversified index fund. Nothing fancy, just the S&P 500. Automatic deposits. She doesn't think about it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Kevin's monthly mortgage payment, principal and interest alone, is about $2,494. Add property taxes, roughly $390 a month. Homeowners insurance, $150 a month. Maintenance, averaged out, about $310 a month. His total monthly housing cost, approximately $3,344. Lisa's rent is $1,600. She increases it by 3% a year to account for rent hikes, and she invests the difference. In year one, Lisa is investing roughly $1,744 a month. Now, the question everyone wants to know, who comes out ahead? Hold that thought, because first, I need to show you why the conventional wisdom is broken. And for that, we need to look at what the research actually says. Here's a number that will shock most people. According to Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Shiller, the guy who literally wrote the book on housing markets, the real return on U.S. housing, adjusted for inflation, from 1890 to 2024 is approximately 0.6% per year. Let me say that again. 0.6%. Not 6%. Not 8%. Not the housing always goes up story you've been told at every dinner party. Less than 1% after inflation. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 over the same long-term horizon has returned roughly 7% per year after inflation. Now, and this is important, that doesn't mean housing never makes money. Of course it does. Some markets, some decades, some neighborhoods absolutely crush it. But on average, across the entire country, over long periods of time, housing is not the wealth-building machine people think it is. Here's another stat. A 2023 study from the Federal Reserve found that the median American homeowner has about 70% of their total net worth locked up in their home. 70%. In a single, illiquid, non-diversified asset that historically returns less than 1% after inflation. And a report from the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard found that nearly one-third of American homeowners, 33%, are cost-burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their gross income on housing. This isn't wealth building. This is wealth concentration in the worst possible vehicle. So why does everyone still believe the myth? That's the trap. And now let me break down the framework, the 7 sections of the housing trap, so you can see exactly how it works. 1. The leverage illusion. People love to say, but Zach, when you buy a house, you're using leverage. You put down 10% or 20% and you control a $400,000 asset. And that's true. Leverage amplifies returns, but here's what they forget. Leverage amplifies losses too. If your home drops 10% in value and you only put 10% down, your equity is wiped out. Gone. And unlike stocks, you can't sell a bedroom to rebalance your portfolio. You're locked in. Leverage in housing is a double-edged sword that people only ever look at from one side. 2. The phantom equity problem. Let's say Kevin's house goes up in value by 3% a year. After 10 years, it's worth about $504,000. He looks at Zillow. He feels rich. But here's the problem. That equity is trapped. He can't spend it. He can't invest it. The only way to access it is to sell the house, and then he needs somewhere to live, which costs money. Or take out a home equity loan, which is more debt. I call this phantom equity. It exists on paper, but it doesn't improve your daily life, your cash flow, or your financial flexibility. It's like having a trust fund you can never withdraw from. 3. The maintenance vortex. This is the one that grinds people down slowly. The National Association of Home Builders estimates that major home systems, HVAC, roofing, plumbing, electrical, have lifespans of 15 to 25 years, which means if you own a home long enough, you will replace everything. A new roof? $8,000 to $15,000. HVAC system? $5,000 to $12,000. Plumbing repair? God help you. These costs don't show up in the mortgage calculator. They don't show up in the real estate agent's pitch, but they show up in your bank account every single time. 4. The mobility penalty. Remember Sarah and James from the beginning? They turned down a career opportunity because they couldn't sell their house fast enough. This is incredibly common. A study from the Brookings Institution found that homeownership reduces labor mobility. Homeowners are significantly less likely to move for a better job, even when moving would increase their income by 20% or more. Think about what that means over a career. You stay in a lower-paying job, in a city with fewer opportunities because you're anchored to a building. That's not financial security, that's a financial cage. 5. The lifestyle inflation engine. Here's one nobody talks about. When you buy a bigger home, you don't just buy the home. You buy the furniture to fill it, you buy the lawn equipment, you buy the curtains, the appliances, the patio set, the decorations. You buy the lifestyle that matches the house. It's like buying a boat and then realizing you need a trailer, a truck to pull the trailer, a dock slip, insurance, and a second job. Homeownership triggers a cascade of spending that never shows up in the original budget. And slowly, invisibly, it erodes the margin you need to build real wealth. 6. The tax deduction myth. But the mortgage interest deduction. Okay, let's talk about this. After the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the standard deduction nearly doubled. Today, it's over $29,000 for married couples filing jointly. That means the vast majority of homeowners no longer itemize their deductions. The mortgage interest deduction, the crown jewel of the homeownership builds wealth argument, benefits fewer than 10% of tax filers. For most middle-class homeowners, the tax benefit of owning a home is essentially zero. It's a ghost. It's a talking point from 1995 that people still repeat because it sounds true. 7. The emotional anchor. And this is the deepest part of the trap. Once you buy a house, your identity becomes tied to it. You're a homeowner. It's a status, it's a milestone. And because of that emotional attachment, people make terrible financial decisions to keep the house. They drain retirement accounts. They take on credit card debt. They say no to opportunities. They stay in bad situations. Because selling the house feels like failure. And that emotional gravity, that sense of, I can't walk away from this, is the most expensive force in personal finance. So let's go back to Kevin and Lisa. Let's run the numbers at age 55. That's 25 years later. Kevin's house, appreciating at 3% a year, is now worth about $785,000. He's paid off most of his mortgage, but over 25 years, he's also spent roughly $195,000 in property taxes, $80,000 in insurance, and $165,000 in maintenance and repairs. Total money poured into the house beyond the purchase price, approximately $440,000. His net housing equity, home value minus remaining mortgage and all costs, somewhere around $520,000. Lisa has been investing $1,744 a month, adjusted over time as her rent increased, and she calibrated accordingly. Conservatively averaging $1,400 a month into the S&P 500 at a 7% real return. Lisa's investment portfolio at age 55, approximately $1,060,000. Lisa is worth twice what Kevin is, and her wealth is liquid. She can access it, she can move anywhere, she can retire early, she can take risks. Kevin's wealth is locked inside walls and a roof that needs replacing. Same income, same starting point. One decision. Now, and I want to be very clear about this, I am not saying never buy a house. That would be stupid. What I am saying is, buy a house only when the math works. Here's the rule I use. I call it the 5-5-20 rule. 5. Don't buy unless you plan to stay for at least 5 years. Transaction costs, agent fees, closing costs, moving expenses will eat you alive otherwise. 5. Your total monthly housing cost, mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, should not exceed 25% of your gross monthly income. If it crosses 30%, you're in the danger zone. 20. Put at least 20% down. No PMI, no over-leveraging. If you can't put 20% down and still have a 6-month emergency fund, you're not ready. And here's the bonus rule. Never stop investing. Even if you buy a house, commit to putting at least 15% of your income into diversified investments. Your house is where you live. Your portfolio is how you build wealth. And here's why this matters so much. Compounding is the most powerful force in personal finance. But compounding needs 2 things, time and consistency. Every dollar you divert from investments into an overpriced house is a dollar that loses decades of compounding. Let me put it this way. If Lisa invests $500 a month starting at age 30, at 7% real returns by age 65, that $500 a month becomes $1,020,000. But if she waits until 40, because she spent her 30s pouring money into a house she couldn't afford, that same $500 a month becomes only $456,000. Same contribution, same return. But the 10-year delay cost her $564,000. That's not a rounding error. That's a house. That's retirement. That's freedom. The housing trap doesn't just take your money today, it steals the future growth of that money. And you never see it because it's a loss that never appears on any statement. I want to leave you with something. We live in a culture that confuses shelter with wealth, that confuses owning a thing with being free. But real wealth isn't a building you're tied to. Real wealth is options. It's the ability to say yes to the things that matter and no to the things that don't. It's waking up on a Tuesday morning and knowing, truly knowing, that you are not trapped. A house can be a wonderful thing. A home is one of the most beautiful things in life. But a home is not a financial plan, and the moment you confuse the two, that's when the trap closes. So before you sign that mortgage, before you stretch your budget to buy more house than you need because someone told you it's the smart thing to do, ask yourself one question. Am I buying a home or am I buying a cage with granite countertops? My name is Zach. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.